Jeff, Jim, and Carmela, Part 24. It continued to snow in Atlanta, a rare snowfall, and the sales department telephone was ringing. So on part number 24, Jim answered the sales department phone. Hello, this is Carmela, and I thought I would catch you this evening. Your replacement just announced some road closures, and you all are on Kentucky Avenue. One of the roads closed, so I figured this was a perfect time to talk to you. And I'd like to say at this point, my story will have some edits. A lot of my colloquialism comes out in my writing, and for an example, talk and speak. You speak to someone, you talk to someone. So there will be a conflict there, but eventually I'll have someone to edit my story, and I wanted to mention that. So I'm going to start all over. We're to the point to where Jeff has just signed off his program, his midnight program, and Carmela's calling him on the sales department phone. He hadn't been answering it, but due to a rare snowfall in Atlanta, he's stranded in the station, so he answers the phone. And I'm going to start this over again. Jim answered the sales department phone. Hello, this is Carmela, and I thought I would catch you this evening. Your replacement just announced some road closures, and you all are on Kentucky Avenue. One of the roads closed, so I figured this was a perfect time to talk to you, or speak to you. Jim suddenly concluded that Carmela was probably a crazy person, and he wanted to get her story because why else would she be playing telephone intrigue? He decided not to beat around the bush, so he asked her directly why she wanted to talk to a radio announcer. There was a long pause before Carmela, with her ultra-feminine voice, began to speak. And I'm going to enter some information about this story. I'm doing this basically in the third person on all the characters, even sometimes the first person as the author, and the parts, the female parts, where Carmela speaks, I would like to have a female voice to do that part since it's in the third person and the first person. But since it's all me, I hope you all understand. So anyway, I thought I'd just let you know on this part 24. So anyway, there was a long pause before Carmela, with her ultra-feminine voice, began to speak. Jim, I know you are probably thinking it's strange, the way I have approached you on the radio station telephone, but I have been thinking I should and want to tell you why. The first evening when you began your program, I was talking on the phone to my best friend who lives in Spokane, Washington. My radio in the kitchen somehow turned itself on, probably from a timer I had set when baking a cake. When you spoke, I almost fainted because your voice was identical to Jeff's, my late husband's voice. I thought I was hallucinating as I listened to you. It began to scare me, and I did not know what to do so I began calling your request line. When you answered the phone, I knew I was not hallucinating because it was as if Jeff, my late husband, was speaking to me. If you want to hang up on me, I will understand, but I just had to talk to you because I cannot help myself. You must let me share this with you. Jim could not believe what Carmela was telling him. He thought this must be some kind of joke, but he decided to play along with this woman with the beautiful voice, so Jim asked her what happened to Jeff. I cannot tell you because I do not know. I received official notice that Jeff was killed in action, but what kind of action, I do not know. My dad worked for Joint Business Services in Istanbul, Turkey. He was the Turkish manager for the international company. When they moved to Istanbul, I had just graduated and did not want to go with them. I was living with a friend in Spokane, Washington. I received a job in Japan before I went to Istanbul to live with my folks. My mother wanted me to come and live with them in Istanbul while I figured out what to do with my life. When I arrived on the Pan American flight from New York, my dad left a note with the Pan Am representative telling me he was in an important meeting and could not meet me at the airport. My mother would not drive or catch a taxi by herself in Turkey back in the 60s, so I was on my own in a strange land with my luggage and one of the worst rainstorms to hit Istanbul in years. While I was standing trying to get one of the Turkish taxis to acknowledge me, an American named Jeff made his taxi driver stop and give me a ride. They were going to the Hilton Hotel, and I was to wait there until Dad got out of a sales meeting. As I sat in the taxi with Jeff, it was one of those love at first sight events. Jeff and I became almost inseparable, and we were married 1 month to the day after that first meeting in the Turkish taxi. Jim could hardly believe this stranger was opening her heart to him. He asked Carmela what Jeff was doing in Turkey. Carmela's voice became softer as she said, I don't know. I believe he was working for MI7 because I received a visit after Jeff said he would be gone for a few weeks. The man, who never identified himself, said he was sad to inform me that Jeff would not be returning. Jeff and I did not have a formal wedding. We went through the Christian process with a preacher, but I found out later the records of our marriage did not exist. After that, I went into a deep depression, but I would not let anyone prescribe medication for me. I came back to the States and moved in with my girlfriend in Spokane, Washington. One evening, I received a registered letter from a lawyer in Atlanta telling me I was the owner of a house in Atlanta. The letter also informed me that my bank account had received a deposit of $1 million. The lawyer in Atlanta said they would be handling the legal stuff for me. They also told me the state and federal taxes were paid. Jim was thinking this was the most bizarre story he had heard. Then he asked Carmela for her address and telephone number. Carmela began to sound distressful as she told Jim she could not do that. Please do not let that be the condition where you will allow me to talk. Give me your home phone number and I will phone you. At this point, Carmela had Jim so intrigued there was no way he was going to do anything to cause her to stop talking. He wanted to know all he could about Carmela, although he was still thinking this mysterious girl was leading him down a false path. Jim gave Carmela his home phone number, and they continued to talk on the sales department phone. Carmela continued to tell Jim about her life, withholding nothing about her relationship with Jeff. She told Jim about how she had become a recluse after moving to Atlanta. I only leave my house to get the things one needs to survive. Before I heard you on the radio, I only watched movies. Talking to you and hearing your voice is starting to make me live again. To be truthful, I am in love with your voice, and it is bringing me back to life again. My short time with Jeff was the best time of my life, and I enjoyed everything about him and the way he made me feel. I never had any doubts that Jeff loved me, and he had my love, body and soul. That is why I am wishing you would let me at least talk to you, because you are bringing me back from despair. What could Jim say to that? Because this beautiful voice was getting to him. Carmela continued to tell Jim everything about her life with Jeff. Carmela was bringing forth longings Jim had for companionship, and he was talking to a woman who, because of a tragedy in her life, was in love with his voice. The whole thing was crazy, but Jim was enjoying the craziness.